Hi, it's Carol, and thank you for stopping by for my 2024 WIP Parade. If you're not familiar with the term, WIP stands for Work in Progress, and I have 23 of them to share with you today. I'm also including my one finish from last year that was on I had two finishes last year, but my one finish that was on last year's WIP Parade, just so that you can see where it was at the beginning of the year, and then the finish, because we're here to share things. And I am going to have actually the last year and the today picture like right next to each other, so it'll be really obvious. Last year will always be on the left, today will always be on the right. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, I've also taken all my projects, I've lumped them into groupings just to kind of keep them together. I have samplers, full coverage, Mirabilias, I have enough of those going, they're all like their own category. My miscellaneous, which is kind of everything else, and then a couple smalls and my needlepoint. And with that, I'm just gonna go ahead and get started with the sampler category. First up is going to be Modern Folk Embroidery's 2021 Stitch Along, The Fruit of Plenty. This is a piece that I had tried to focus on in 2023 and didn't quite happen as I intended. I'm using DMC 3808 and 3810 on a white 40 count Vertical even weave. I started this April 9th, 2022, and I'm currently only at 38% done. Anyway, this is a focus on a finished piece for 2024. I am hoping to get it done. It is one of my planned finishes for this year. Heartstring Samplery, Consider the Lilies. This is my largest piece. Not the most stitches, but definitely the largest piece. And I am doing this with all the called for flosses. It uses all of the over-dyed cottons, Classic Colorworks, Speaks Dye Works, and Gentle Arts. And I am doing it on the called for 28 count Winter Brew linen by R&R Reproductions. I am deviating from the pattern because it calls for 1/2 on the 28 count, and I just prefer a little bit more coverage than that, so I am doing this 2/2. I started it on June 27th, 2022, and have not made a huge amount of progress on it. It is only 3.7% done, and I'm not spending any planning time on it. I just do a motif here and there as I feel called by it. Modern Folk Embroidery with the 2020 Stitch Along Family Patchwork Sampler. This uses the same fabric as Fruit of Plenty, and it's because I bought a fat half from 123 Stitch and then cut it in half and serged the edges myself. I am doing this with DMC 924 as the only color. I started this April 16th, 2022, and I intended it to only take a year. Naturally, my good intentions when meeting reality totally gave way, and what ended up happening is I hibernated the project for all of 2023 and decided just not to touch it at all. I find it and Fruit of Plenty are very similar as far as the stitching style. Yes, I know it's the same designer and everything, but I mean, like, for what I'm looking for and trying to get out of a stitching project at any given moment in time, both of them fill the same desire for me, so I have been focusing on Fruit of Plenty instead because I wanted to get some progress. Unfortunately, that means that this is only 6% done, and I'm hoping that I don't keep it in hibernation for this year. Rosewood Manor's Dreaming of Tulips. This is my first Rosewood Manor piece, and I started it as a small project back in May of 2020. Note, it's 200 stitches by 200 stitches. This is not exactly a small project. It's not huge either, it's just not really small. And I don't know why I thought it was going to be, quote, small. Anyway, I am using a 32 count white Belfast linen, which is kind of one of my favorite default fabrics if I don't know what else to do. And I'm using a mix of the called for Weeks Dye Works and DMC threads. This has a good amount of back stitching in the project, as the word tulip is repeated over and over again in a bunch of different alphabets. And the only regret I have about this is I didn't give myself a big enough margin. It's only 2 inches around the edges, and that means it doesn't fit all that fantastically on my favorite hoop, which is probably why I haven't spent as much time on this as I probably should have. Consequently, it's only 21% done. Heartstring Samplery with Summertime Coverlet. This project was my first foray into monochromatic stitching. It's not the first one that I switched, not the first one I've completed, but this is the one that got me started on the idea of one color and just see how the project turns out. The fabric is a 36 count linen from Weeks Dye Works in the colorway linen. It's a really beautiful neutral. I highly recommend it if you find it. I'm stitching this 1/2 using Gentle Arts Uniform Blue. And the pattern calls for one set of the flowers at the top, and the pattern photo showed 2, and it was just so beautiful looking that I decided I was going to do 2 sets. So that means there are 16 flower motifs at the top, of which I've done almost 11. Haven't finished that 11th one quite yet, but I'll get there. If you note, you'll see a little bit of staining of the fabric around the flowers on the right side. And the Gentle Arts, they are color safe according to industry standards, if you read the card. But that does not mean color safe when you spill Sprite on your project. And I did that 2 years ago. I still have not taken the time to soak it because I'm worried that it won't come out. So I'm going to just do the entire project and then see what happens when I immerse it. I started this in the summer of 2018 and I'm about a third of the way done. This is my one finish from last year's WIP Parade, Heartstring Samplery Coffee Quaker. This was my first finish of 2023, and unfortunately I still don't actually have it fully finished yet, which is kind of sad. The framing shop is on the way to pretty much everywhere I go in town, and I have stopped in once to kind of get an idea of how much it was going to cost me, but he doesn't mount needle work himself. He puts it on the sticky back, and I'm like, oh no, you can't do that. I'll let you touch the glass, I'll let you touch the mats, do whatever you need to do with the frames, but you're not mounting my needle work for me. So I just haven't picked a size and mounted it to take to him. That's neither here nor there. Anyway, this project was started in March of 2020, and I finished it on March 31st, 2023. It is on a 40 count linen from R&R Reproductions Beach Brew, and I used most of the called for flosses, but there were 2 colors that I subbed out because one was too green, one was too red, and I just picked more brown tones. And it's 1 thread over 2. I have to say I do still love this project, and I am glad that I was able to get it done. Heaven and Earth Designs, mini, interior of Tintern Abbey. My sister is ultimately responsible for this project. We were talking back in the fall of 2022, and she had really gotten on board with full coverage because full coverage is fun. I like full coverage. She likes full coverage, and she sent me a link to HAED was having like a sale at this point, and she's like, what do you think of this? And it was the mini interior of Tintern Abbey, and I had been looking at that chart for on and off for 5 years, since like right after it got published. Anyway, I loved it, but I would never commit to buying it. And then she's like, well, if you stitch it, I'll stitch it. And I couldn't say no. So we started it on Thanksgiving of 2022, and in a year, I got a page done. Now, because of how the works out, it's 10% of the project, but my sister has definitely been much more fruitful in her stitching on this, but that's okay. It's been a lot of fun. This is a 18 count ivory Ada from Hobby Lobby, and I'm using all the called for DMC 2 threads over 1. Heaven and Earth Designs, Winter Kiss. Artwork is by Adele Sessler, and I started this on January 1st, 2017, making this both my oldest WIP and my biggest by stitch count, not area, but it has 2 distinctions, which I guess works out pretty nicely. I am doing this 1/1 on a 25 count Ecru Lugana, and it uses a relatively small number of DMC colors, 36 if I remember correctly. And the sad part is because it's my largest by stitch count, I don't know that I'm ever going to get this project finished. I would like to. It's really pretty. I have all of the flosses needed for it because I bought them all in one big batch, and I've managed to be very good about not rating that stash for any other projects, but my rate of progress on the 25 count is just so slow, and I feel bad. I probably shouldn't, but it works out that way sometimes. I just look at it and say, I don't know that I'm going to ever finish just at the rate. I'm only on the third page of 49, and that's what I've done in 7 years. So do the math on that. I won't get this done in my lifetime unless I decide to prioritize it. And I have so many other things that I'm stitching that I don't know this one will ever rise to the my favoriteest it needs to be worked on. But I do enjoy how it's been coming out, so it'll also never be a UFO either.
Autumn Chapel from Custom Crafts.
This is charted by Tarina Clark of Artisy, and the artwork is by Mark Keatley. The pattern is also available in PDF form on Artisy's website if you're interested, along with more works by Mark Keatley, who I discovered I'm apparently kind of like, because I might have some of those PDFs in the stash now. And I'm stitching this 2/1 on an 18 count white Ada that I got from Hobby Lobby. I started this initially September 26, 2022, and then I discovered in this last summer that I had messed up cutting the fabric, and I had started off in the upper right corner, 3-inch margin, 3-inch margin, and if I didn't do something about it, I was only going to have a 7/8 of an inch margin in the bottom right corner. I wasn't going to be able to work with that. So I decided to just go with a restart. I had been doing this kind of diagonal stitching with parking anyway, and I don't like parking. Like every time I try it, I don't like it. So I'm restarting it is just cross country with no parking. I'm enjoying it a lot more this way. And I did restart that in October of 2023.
Holy Night Stocking from Dimensions Gold Collection.
I've been loving the idea of stitched Christmas stockings ever since I finished Holiday Hooties this last fall. And so I decided that I'm doing this one for me. I started it in December 10th, 2023, and I'm using all the kit fibers in the provided 18 count ivory Ada. This is my first Dimensions kit that has the 4-strand half stitch. I've heard of it, but I had not actually run into it before now, so I'm gonna see how it comes out on this one. I love that this particular project is in fact full coverage, which is why I have it grouped in here. I wasn't really expecting that until I pulled it out.
A Basila kit, Summer Symphony.
The artwork for this is by Aaron Dirtner and Cooler Designs Studio, and the copyright is 1994. This is an out-of-print kit that I found on eBay, and I started it on June 5th, 2022. I'm using all the kit materials, except for the needle. The needle, as it came out of the kit, actually had a burr on the end of it, which surprised me, because I was expecting slightly higher quality. But anyway, it is a 14-count white Ada, and it has like a gray fibers in the selvage, so I don't know if that's Charles Craft or something. I mean, I know orange is Swagart, but I don't know what this one is, but I do like it. It is, I don't know, a really nice Ada, and I don't find myself piercing through unless I want to. Some of my other Adas, I have more difficulty with that, so I really like that this one's just, it's like the most reliable one I have. And the entire project, I've calculated it out at 8% complete, but that doesn't account for a lot of the edges. I'm not getting like my full 100 square grids filled in, but this one's going really well. I like it.
Lady of the Mist by Mirabilia Designs.
I'm stitching this with the called for floss on a 32 count raw natural linen. I started it on March 28th, 2022, and I stuck it in hibernation for all of 2023. I have 5 Mirabilias, and that's apparently one too many to work on in the course of a year. So it is no progress and still stuck at we'll say, a very low 1% complete.
Mirabilia Designs in the Stargazer.
I am stitching this on a 28 count raw natural cashel linen. The pattern called for amber or toasted almond by Witchhold and Swigert respectively, but I really wanted something less brown. I didn't love how it came across, and I prefer a more neutral. So I went with the closest I could find to ever favorite grayish, which in this case was the Raw Natural. I started it March 2nd, 2022. It's currently 21% done, and I need to spend more time on the beading. All of the DMC stitching on the top half of the pattern is complete, but with the exception of the star that's over on the side, I haven't gotten there. I'm going to have to do all the beading first just to figure out where I'm supposed to do that. And based on probably the amount of beading, I'll end up having to stitch that little bit in hand, which I haven't done in ages. So that'll be fun.
Autumn Queen from Mirabilia Designs.
This is the third of the seasonal queens that I am stitching, and she's on a 32 count white Belfast linen, and the cut itself is bigger than a fat quarter. I started this on September 9th, 2019, at least according to my book. My Instagram says sometime in 2020. I don't remember when I started it, to be honest. I might have intended to do it that September and then didn't actually pick it up and do anything for real until the March time frame. Not sure, but on the plus side, it's 90% done, and I cannot wait to have this one finished. This will probably be my first finish of 2024 because every time I pick it up now, I'm like, oh, it's so close to done. Just make it done.
Mirabilia Designs, Winter Queen.
This is stitched on a 32 count white Belfast linen that matches the size of my cut for Autumn Queen. I started this on March 13th, 2022, and it is currently 16% complete.
Royal Holiday from Mirabilia.
This project is stitched on a 32 count light mocha Belfast linen. The called for the pattern is chestnut or toasted almond, and I don't remember why, but I didn't use either of them. I can't tell you that I had any particular reason for it because the light mocha is not hugely different in the sense of it's a warm brown color, just not as dark as the other two. But for whatever reason, I decided to go with it. I do like that it's reminiscent of the colors that are in her dress, and it contrasts nicely with the whisper and the cloak and in the deep red colors for the velvet side. I started Royal Holiday on March 19th, 2022, and it's currently only 6% done. One thing I have mentioned in the past is not loving the whisper and stitching with it. I still don't love it. It's not as fun for me as far as a tactile sensation. Like, I love the feel of DMC. I merely like the whisper, but I do love the effect when it's actually stitched in. So I've decided to embrace it, and because this project uses a lot of whisper.
Fall Carousel Horse designed by Teresa Wentzler.
I'm stitching this on a 32 count antique white Belfast linen. I have a yard in total, and I cut it into fat quarters for each of the carousel horses, as I have the patterns for all 4 seasons, but I'm only working on fall right now. I started this on October 29th, 2022, and I'm only 9% done. But a lot of that 9% has happened this fall, and I love the progress that I've made. I love that you can see that it's a horse with no head. That's a little creepy.
Mick the Miller from Long Dog Samplers.
This is my first foray into Long Dog Samplers, although I've been collecting the charts for a while, and I am stitching this on a 36 count Nantucket Brew by R&R Reproductions, and it uses DMC 310 5200. This I started as gift stitching, meant for the fall of 2023 and then Christmas of 2023, and as we'll note, we're in 2024, it's not done, so I managed to totally fail at that, but it is 10% complete, and it is a focus piece for me this year.
Tapestry by Ink Circles.
I'm using the called for floss for this entire project. It's one that I had said back in 2018 that I wasn't sure how enamored I was of fancy floss. I'm still not necessarily sure I'm enamored of it, if only because there is some lack of consistency between dye lots, even on the same card. I have run into that. You can see like the color that's guarding gates, which is in the bird motifs. It's supposed to be a brownish gray, but some of them are definitely darker than others, and I don't know that it's been my favorite, but the project itself is in general pretty cool. I started this in January 2019, and it's 17% done.
Modern folk embroidery with Ave Maria, the Annunciation.
This project is on a 36 count white Belfast linen, 2/2. I wanted to go with the fuller coverage. I have other projects that are 1/2, but this one was a 2/2. And I am using DMC 311 for the entire project. I started this on March 25th, 2022, and it was meant to be a small project. I don't know if I just not really figured out how big it is, because I don't necessarily look before I start. I just leap into things. And I thought it was going to be just a simple 9-month project, and it's not. And here I am, almost 2 years later, with 20% done.
A collection by Heartstring Samplery called Sunday Stitches. This one is Be Thou My Vision.
This is a DMC conversion on 40 count Star Hollow blend from R&R Reproduction. This is my second smallest project, and I started it October 27th, 2022, and it's 12% done. I have not put a huge amount of different stitching sessions on it, maybe 3. It got stuck kind of in the back of where all my cross-stitch bags are, and I never remember to pull it out. I ought to. This would be fast and easy to finish. I just haven't.
Start doing a kit from Designworks.
I am using the kit floss, and I lost all the turquoise, so I do have to use the DMC substitute for it. The kit floss colors are clearly supposed to line up with DMC, but they're not an exact one-for-one match, at least what I got. But it's all like so close that I was like, well, I'll just rip out the turquoise I had, use the DMC instead. And it's on a 14 count Navy Ada that came with the kit. Started it on April 13th, 2022, but I'm only 10% done. Again, it's one that I could easily get done. It's been my travel piece now for the last couple months. I take it with me lots and lots of places, and then I don't work on it. I scroll on my phone instead, which may be more of an indicator that I should probably UFO this, but I'm not going to make that determination right now. If we're here talking about it again next year, then yeah, I will UFO it at that point.
Butterfly on Zinnia, a Dimensions needlepoint kit.
This is a needlepoint kit that I am using the kit floss on a 14 count mesh canvas with the pre-printed design. There is a chart that comes with it, but it's more of a use this color. It's kind of to match up because sometimes the printing on the canvas is not really obvious. There's a gold color that's right next to a yellow color. In the right light you can see it, but it is helpful for the diagram. This is a fun and fast stitch. Again, it's needlepoint. I'm doing it in a continental stitch, and it is about 25% complete.
And lastly, a Bacilla needlepoint kit, Geraniums.
The art is by Barbara Batts of Cooler Design Studio, and this is a older kit. It's a copyright of 1996. I bought it in 2006, around the time my daughter was born, started it, and then put it aside for years. Never sure if I was actually going to come back to it. The kit uses a Persian wool on a 14 count interlock canvas, and I have kind of been switching up a little bit of how I've been doing this. I was struggling with my continental stitch. The tension just didn't seem to matter. It would look a little wonky. So I did a bunch of the background stitching in a basket weave, but then I realized they don't put enough yarn in these in order to do a basket weave for the entire background. So I'm switching back to continental, but it makes me a little frustrated because I prefer basket weave is so much fun to stitch. Like, I find it just relaxing. It is so cool, and I love the diagonal, and my tension looks fantastic with it. And since there's no way to get extra yarn for it, I'm switched back. But this is a fun stitch. I am about a third of the way through, and this is another one of my focus pieces for 2024.
I hope that everybody had as much fun in watching my WIP parade as I had in putting it together. It was really exciting to see how much I did in a year on all of my projects, and even the ones that I did not devote what I considered any particular time and energy toward, that I was able to touch so many of my projects in the course of this year, and that I only had 2 that were truly orphaned for the year, which I think I expected to have more that I didn't touch. But I'm also hoping that this year I will be touching those projects so that everything gets worked on in this year, that I get some finishes more than just what I had. And I am just really excited for what I can see me working on going forward. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you like what you saw, please subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.